YouTube, check this out right here. Check this out. This mat is gorgeous. It's nice. It's gorgeous. Oh, the Dragon World. What is this? Champion. What? Hold on, wait. Here we go. Here we go. Oh, Mike Hoffman, folks. What is going on, man? What is it? This is Atlanta, or not Atlanta. This is Chicago. Yeah, see how I messed that up? Whew, it's all good. So we got Mike Hoffman with his Dragon World Championship right here, guys. He's going to Japan. How's that feel?
Feels great.
Does it feel great?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know if it's set in yet.
Oh man, he'll get there.
I'm starting to feel it.
Starting to feel it?
It's pretty awesome.
Good, good. So let's talk about this deck real quick. Go ahead and give us a deck profile, and we'll go from there, man.
Okay.
All right.
So this deck is obviously Dragon World, as you said, and it's focused around the 5th Omni support. And so to start off, my buddy is 5th Omni Cavalry Dragon, Double SD, and Megalex SD. The reason why I chose this as my buddy is because its skill on placement lets you search out a 5th Omni monster or item and add it to your hand, and then you take 2 damage. So by having it as my buddy, when I buddy call it, I actually only take 1 damage instead of the 2. And with that, it lets me get combo pieces to help me get more damage dealing cards and to help me mitigate that damage. So to start off with my monsters, I run 4 Sandstorm Staff Arcade.
Ooh, she's so pretty.
And so what this card does is when you take a damage, you gain a gauge and gain a life. And then if it's your turn, it allows you to draw a card and then call a 5th Omni monster from your hand as a size 0 to your field. And so what this does, it lets you combo with your different 5th Omni larger cards. Like, as you'll see later, you have Tembu,
ooh,
and then also Mugen Drum.
Ooh, Mugen Drum. I don't know what that means in English, but that works.
And also it has double attack, and so you get those 2 attacks, which also helps. And so then to move on, as I mentioned, you'll have Tembu in your deck, and I run 2 Tembu, and this is a size 3. And what this does, it's an Omni Lord, so you can run it in any deck.
The best Omni Lord.
Yes, and then so what this does is when it enters the field or when you take damage, you destroy all monsters on your opponent's field, which is really nice against decks like Chaos, where they have the 4 monsters on the field and you want to get rid of them so your opponent can't Chaos Drain with Gear God. So so that's what I would mainly use this for. And when you combo it with Arcade, you'd be able to bring this in as a size 0, and so then you get 2 monsters with double attack on the field, one with 2 crit, and this one has 3 crit.
So you get to play Chaos, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really nice. And then moving on from there, I run 4 of the Mugen Drum, and so this is your main key card in this deck. And the reason why it's your key card is his skill is every time you take a damage, you gain a life, and then you destroy a monster on your field. And this isn't just a once per turn skill like with Arcade and Tembu. This is every time you take a damage.
Oh.
So it's almost like you're reducing every damage by 1, in a sense. So it really helps against certain decks, and it just helps clear your field with the combo pieces that are in this. So now moving on to more of the support, I run 4 Merrick SDs.
I remember this guy.
Yeah, so what this guy does is if I have a size 2 or greater Armored Dragon on my field, he becomes a size 0, which is nice because then it combos with you being able to have Tembu or even Arcade or even just Drum on the field. And then his skill is a counter skill, so you can use it during both turns. And so what you do is you choose an Armored Dragon on your field, and you give it +1 attack, +1 defense, and penetrate, and then you take 1 damage. And the key part about this is you take the damage because it combos with your Drum, and that you can use the counter during either turn. And by doing that, you can pop cards on your opponent's field when they play them and to stop their combos and it just helps just clear the board in general. And plus, by giving it the power and penetrate, it helps against chaos, since you want to be attacking Gear God and to break through their center.
Yeah, chaos hates penetrate.
Oh yeah. And then you got 4 of my buddy, which is the Megalax SD and Double SD. And as I mentioned earlier, it fetches a 5th Omni monster or item, which can help. As you can see, the deck is basically all 5th Omni monsters, and so it helps you get those combo pieces that you need, whether it be the arcade to just start your combos, or even the drum to call off of arcade, because when you take the 2 damage, arcade skill will activate, which allows you to then bring out drum as a size 0. And then from there, another nice combo piece is drum SD.
Oh.
And this is also an Omni Lord, which is nice.
So you can play one of it in any other deck.
Yes.
Or world.
Yes. And so this is another one of those key cards that has a counter ability, which is you may put a card from the top of your deck into the soul of a monster on your field, and then you take 1 damage. And again, the key component is you take a damage, and the soul is really nice in that you can use it when a card is attacking, let's say, your drum, because your drum is your key card, which you always want to keep out on the field. So a lot of these help you protect your drum, as well as just while you're protecting your field, you're destroying your opponents. And so that rounds out my monsters. And so
Pay close attention, folks. Pay close attention.
Moving on to spells, the most important spell I found was Dragon Lord Quake Slash. And so what this does is, part of the cast cost is you pay a gauge, take a damage, and by taking that damage, it's not like paying a life. You actually take the damage, and it procs all your skills that say when you take a damage, do etc. And so what this does is you destroy a monster on your opponent's field, and then after that, if you have a card with drum on your field, you can deal 2 damage to your opponent, and you can only cast this once per turn. And so what this does is when you combo it with your Mugen drum right here, you use this, you cast it, you pop a monster on your opponent's field, and then you deal the 2 damage, and then drum skill activates, allowing you to destroy another monster on the field.
Crazy.
So by doing that, it helps just clear the field, and also it's almost like a pseudo impact in that if your opponent is at 2 or less life, you can just hit them for the 2 damage. And then
such a good card. Such a good card.
Yeah. And then moving on, I run 4 Drago Wisdom, which
retro.
You can only cast if you have a 5th Omni on your field, a card with 5th Omni on the field. And so then its cast cost is take a damage, that all important take a damage.
Yes.
And then it just helps you with your gauge and hand resource in that you gain a gauge and you draw a card. And that also helps combo with your arcade in that, let's say you have only 1 gauge or no gauge, and you cast this, you gain the gauge, you draw a card. And then with arcade skill, it activates because you took the damage. You gain another gauge, and you draw another card. And then you have the 2 gauge to call out the drum or the tembu or whatever you need. And then moving on, just for a little protection, I run 4 Lord's Dragon's Shield.
Ooh.
And this you can only cast if you don't have a monster in your center. And then you nullify the attack, and then you take a damage.
This take a damage thing.
Yeah. So, as I've been saying, it's just critical that you always have these cards to take a damage. And then the all-important Into the Future.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Since this deck revolves around running Armor Dragons, it just helps in that if you need to push for that last attack, you use it to stand a card. If you need to rest that card that's just an annoyance on your opponent's field, you just do that. And this is the card that actually helped me win this championship, in that I needed that 1 more attack, and I had it in hand.
Nice, nice. This card is like, what, $15 right now?
Yeah.
It's only going to keep going up.
Oh, yeah.
The card's nuts.
Considering you can use it in 3 different worlds.
Yes. Oh, it's so stupid. I love it.
Yeah. And then the next card I run is 3 Drago Guts. And so what this card does, it's plain and simple. It's a counter, so you take a damage to gain 3 life.
You take a damage and gain 3 life. Come on, folks. This is...
So essentially you're just getting 2 life in return, but once again, you take the damage, so all your cards will proc off of it.
Nice.
And then my next spell is I run 3 Chest Break.
What? This man's playing generic cards in his main board, folks. He's pro. He's pro, folks. That's how we got here. Championship. Right here.
And so what Chest Break does is I found it really helps against the Chaos matchup in that you can cast it during your turn to put up to 2 spells on your opponent's field to the bottom of their deck in any order. Since Chaos runs 2 set spells, one that makes it so your opponent's monsters can't be popped at all, and which basically just shuts down this deck, so you want to get rid of that as quickly as possible. And then another set spell where any effect damage that is 3 or greater gets reduced to 0. So by doing that, any penetrates that you use and anything like that basically just gets reduced to 0, so that helps out a lot.
Nice. Secret tech right there.
Forgot. There's also another skill. It has a counter skill, which is basically like a mini Loud Voice, in that you choose 1 monster in your opponent's field, and it gets minus 2k power and minus 1 crit.
Not bad. How much did you use that effect during the tournament?
I don't know if I used that effect at all. I mainly just used it to throw the set spells back.
Hey, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
It did what it was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. And then I run 2 Omnilord's Resonance. Since I run 3 different cards that are Omnilord, what it does is when you cast it, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, and you add 2 Omnilord to hand, and then you can put up to 3 Omnilord from there to your drop zone, and then anything else you put on the bottom of your deck in any order. And also, which helps you get your drum, get your SD drum, or even your Tembu. And so that's really nice in that, let's say you don't have it, you don't have that many draw spells, you cast this, and you could top deck the drum or the Tembu, whatever you need. And also, this can also be used in all flags.
Ooh, remember that, folks, all flags. Omnilords in every deck.
And then I also run 2 Dragobright. Its cast cost is take a damage. Surprise, surprise.
Right.
And then you put the top card of your deck into your gauge, and then you choose 1 monster with 5th Omni in its card name from your drop zone, and you add it to hand. And this is really helpful if also you aren't drawing into any of your 5th Omni, your drums, anything, or even your combo pieces. So by doing this, not only do you gain a gauge, you also get a combo piece or one of your main cards.
Notice how Tenbu and Drum are up there, guys. That means you take Drum and Tenbu.
And that's it for the spells. And now moving on to the items. I run 3 of the new Drago Brave. And
Gasp.
What this card does is, part of its equip cost is you pay 1 gauge, you take 1 damage, and then you throw a card from your hand into its soul. And of course the important part there is you take a damage yet again. And then its other skill is it can attack even if you have an Armor Dragon in your center, which is nice so you can have that full field and still be able to swing with this for the 3 crit that it has. And then the other skill that it has is when you take a damage, you gain a gauge, then you gain a life. And then if it's your turn, you draw a card. Nice. And that just helps out because all these skills also proc on your opponent's turn. So if I have the item, arcade, and drum on the field, your opponent attacks for 3 crit, you're like, okay, I'll take it. And then you go, okay, so I take the 3 damage, you activate drum skill to gain the life back, and then you activate arcade skill to gain another life, and then you activate this skill to gain another life. So it's like you have a shield and you aren't taking any damage at all.
Wow. They really turned up with that card.
Yeah. And then my own little tech-in, as I like to say, is the Deity Lance Chaos X Tempest Buster.
What?
Yeah.
How does
Chaos
this work?
in 5th Omni. I never thought I would need it, but as the tournament drew closer, I realized that I felt like I needed an impact in the deck, and so I was looking through all the different impacts, and I was like, I could use the Thunder Empire one, but that requires me to have an open center, when most of the time I have a closed center due to me calling either Arcade to the center or my buddy to the center, depending on the situation. And so I saw this, and I was like, it requires one more attack, and a lot of times I have a double attack, my item, monster in the center, and the monster on the right. and that's 4 attacks right there. And so I figured it would work because I have the close center most of the time.
Pro.
And then I will go to my sideboard. Right here. And this actually came quite in handy against certain decks. And so, to start off, I run one more chest break in my sideboard.
Fair enough.
Just for those chaos matchups, just to make sure I see it. And then I run 2 future powers, drum the future limit break.
What is that?
And this card can come in real handy in that when it link attacks, you destroy all cards on your opponent's field, and then you deal damage and draw cards equal to the number of cards destroyed. So that helps in the Chaos matchup in that it gets rid of everything but Gear God. And not only does it get rid of everything, it also gives you, it lets you draw cards, and then also deals damage to your opponent. And also it's not just, it's good against any deck really, in that you just blow up your opponent's field and you plus off of it and you hurt them even more for it.
Nuts.
And then I also ran 2 Drum Bunker, Dragon, Drill Ram, Buster Break.
Look at that.
This Impact Monster I felt would help me against Chaos. Once again, I always felt like Chaos was my hardest matchup. And so what this does is when you attack a monster on your opponent's center, they cannot use counter. And then also, when it deals damage to your opponent, you destroy every monster on your opponent's field. And so what that helps, and what helps you deal that damage when you're attacking the center, is that it has Penetrate. And so basically what you do is you just go attack Gear God. They can't counter. So then it penetrates for the 3, and then you blow up their entire board. So it just helps in that aspect.
Man, this guy with attack options.
And then I ran 3 Drago Desperate, and what this card does is you pay 1 gauge and you take 1 damage to rest a size 2 or less monster or an item on your opponent's field. And this was actually pretty crucial in some matchups, and that I sideboarded it against Dragon's Vi because they have those big items that just hit you for Penetrate and other things like that, so I knew I had to rest those. Or against Soleil decks where I know they're running Granthes and I don't want them to get that quadruple attack, so I rest their item and things like that. And also, by taking the damage, you get to pop another card on your opponent's field. And this last card was one I didn't think I would actually use or even put into my deck during the tournament, but I actually did at one point, and that is 5th Omni Oath Drago Undertake. And what this card does is you may only cast it when you take damage. And so what you do is, it's a counter, so when you take damage, you'd call a size 2 or less monster with 5th Omni and its card name from your drop zone to the left or right by calling its pay cost. By paying its call cost, there we go. And so, basically, the only time I ever found I needed this was when I was in the mirror match against 5th Omni, because I figured I would be popping his field, he'd be popping my field, and so by having this, once I took a damage, and let's say I didn't have my drum on the field, but I had the 2 gauge, I could take the drum from the drop zone and bring it back out, so I had it for the next turn. And so that was my sideboard, and let's see, what else do I want to say? I just want to say thanks to everyone that's helped me, especially my friend Rio for getting me into Buddy Fight.
Turn up, Rio. Since
he really helped me, and he introduced me to this, and honestly, I find this game to be so much fun. And just thank all my teammates, my brother, and everyone else that's helped me get here. Thanks.
Awesome. So just real quick, what kind of fun did you have at the tournament? Like, what did you play against, you know?
Let's see. Round 1, I faced Thunder Empire.
Ooh.
And so that was pretty interesting because I wasn't sure what to expect from it, but I was able to easily blow up their board while they were doing their attacks and everything, and then keep my board and just go face straight from the get-go. Round 2, I faced Auto Deities, and that was my only loss for the day. And so with that, I ran into Tetra in which I had to constantly link attack Tetra to hit that 9K base.
Tetra's a problem.
Yeah. And so with that, I would link attack, and then he'd call, forget the name of it, was a Hero World card, and that he would then pop one of my attacking monsters, and then it would make the attack whiff, and it would just blow up all my combos and just hurt. Round 3, I actually faced Wild Dragons.
Wild Dragons?
Yeah.
Who was playing what? Metacall, y'all. Metacall.
Yeah. And so, with that, it was a fairly simple matchup. It was just doing what I do, blow up, and go from there. And then round 4, I faced Soleil, and that went to 3 games, which was pretty stressful because game 1, my opponent got out Granthes and just made it so hard to hit that 12K defensive base just to hit, and he just had the shields, and eventually he just wore me out. Game 2, he bricked, and I was just able to go in. And then game 3, I was just able to out-resource him and constantly pop his Soleil so that he couldn't keep on muffing my damage and everything. And then round 5, I played against Chaos, a Gear God variant of Chaos. And so with that, my opponent just bricked going first, and all he did was charge and draw, so I got my field all set up, and I swung for 9, and then he was like, okay, I'm down to 1, and I was like, I cast Into the Future, stand my last card, attack again, and I won.
Told you the card's nuts.
Yeah. And then game 2, it was going back and forth. I was just constantly trying to pop his field just so he couldn't Chaos Drain, and I wouldn't have to waste attacks on trying to clear his field. And eventually, I was able to come out and win that one. Then round 6 was the last round before cut the top 8, and that's where I faced Dirk from Underground with his 5th Omni deck. And honestly, that was the one matchup I was worried about because I had never done the mirror match. And it was just back and forth. I was popping each other's monsters. It was all about gaining field control and whoever had more skills to pop everything. And eventually I was able to come out with the win and beat him. And then overall I took 7th in the tournament. And then we cut the top 8. In round 1 of top 8, I faced Zwei. And for that, it was just, I just felt like I was just doing what I normally do. Pop his Aussies, let him go into dry, let him gain the life, and just slowly whittle away at his life as I ramped up with my attacks.
You're a savage.
And then for top 4, I faced Khalil, and that was the one match I was also worried about because I knew he was playing an 88 variant, and I was like, I've never faced him before, but he's a good friend, and I was just like, this will be interesting. And game 1, he got me, but then game 2, his deck kind of bricked on him, and I was able to push in with all my different attacks and everything. And then game 3 was the one where we really got to interact with each other, and that it was interesting because he played his set spells, and I cast Chest Break, which actually on that turn I top decked the Chest Break to help me out that so much. I drew it and I was like, oh, you're a lifesaver. Because then I casted it and I was able to pop his stuff because he had the one set spell that made it where all of his stuff couldn't be popped, and that just allowed me then to push in for the game. And then final 2, it was me versus Jonathan Midham, and it was another Auto Deity matchup, and I wasn't sure how it would go as well. But then just got going. He got game 1, and game 2 I just pushed again, and then in game 3, that final turn, I had to we both put in a lot of work. He called out 3 Tetras, and I popped all of them so I wouldn't have to deal with them. And then eventually I got him down to 1 life, and I cast my Into the Future, and he's like, you going to Japan? And I still can't believe I'm going.
Turn up. Well, we're really excited for you, man. We really hope to see you do some serious, powerful stuff up in there, man. So I don't even know what to say. I'm hyped for you. Like, you know, shoot. I mean, this is crazy. So, our first champion for Worlds this year. Check him out, guys. We got Mike Hoffman. This is Team Plays for Days. We'll holla.